transfer some of the things off the basketball floor into real world situations and in real life. And I tell our kids all the time, if losing a high school basketball game on Friday night is the worst thing that ever happens to you, you're going to have a pretty good run.
Yeah,
And so and it becomes harder and harder because we live in a world of instant gratification. So now you get kids that if they're not playing varsity as a sophomore, they don't want to play anymore, and that hurts your program. And it's one of those things where they have to understand, and we've got to do a good job of communicating with those kids about long term, big picture type stuff. And so I think you talked about philosophy, you talked about culture, you talked about all those things. I think you hire good people, you bring good people around, and in my 17 years at Glenn and really my 25 years as a head coach, I've been very fortunate to work with some really good people and bring good people around our kids, and they know that, and when they're willing to commit, I think most of them will tell you they have a pretty good experience for us.
Travis, as you look back on your tenure, of course, the Oregon Davis team that cut down the nets is, I'm sure, holds a special place in your heart. But during your Glenn tenure, how about teams that come to mind? And I know coaches hate singling out a team here, a team there, but there have to be, years and/or teams that have been extra special for you.
Well, and I think when I start with this, the answer to this question, Doug, it's going to start with probably players. We've had some good teams, but those teams have been led by some really unique individuals. I go back to Zach Mago, who we lost, and Isaac Pierogi, another kid that we lost. Those were special kids. The kids that we've had the last 5 years, we've had some really special kids. So, it's that's a tough question just because we've had some good teams, but we've had some really really good individuals, and when you get to work with those kids, that's why you do it. That's why you coach high school basketball is because of the kids and the interactions that you have, and maybe the most fun part for me is to bring in 12 different personalities every year and try to blend those personalities together, you got to find those one or two kids on every team that you can kind of build around, and those are the type of kids that when I say Zach Mago and Isaac Pierogi and kids like that, those are the type of kids that you try to build your program around and try to build your programs on. And then obviously the last 3 or 4 years, you have Silas Kaser and Bryson and Noah Drybulis and kids like that have just been great competitors for us.
How, as a coach, do you, I mean, it's probably an impossible question to answer, but deal with, situations, all terrible situations always come up, even through life for us parents. But for coaches, how do you or how did you handle the Zach and Isaac situations? And I'm sure it was beyond excruciating for you, but how did you deal with it personally? And how did you deal with it, with your teams?
Well, I think I'm still dealing with it, to be honest with you, Doug, personally. That's not, there's no blueprint. I said that at the time when both those events occurred. There's no handbook to say this is how you take your team through those. I think it's every situation's unique, every situation's different, and you kind of have to read the individuals that you have, and that's why getting to know your kids is so important, because everybody's going to handle it differently, and for us it was just making ourselves available for those guys that were on the team at the time, and for the families, and something that you never have to hope you never have to go through, but unfortunately life happens, and you got to do the best you can and try to lead the best you can, and there's still some dark moments when you look back and you think about those two guys, and I always share with our younger kids. I got one picture that's maybe the most important picture I've ever had, and it was Zach and Isaac sitting together in Isaac's hospital bed, and I always put that up on the whiteboard and explain to our program who those kids are, and to take advantage of the opportunities that you have, because those are two kids that didn't get an opportunity. So those two guys meant a lot to me personally, and mean a lot to John Glenn basketball, and those are the types of situations and occurrences that you go through as a coach that you hope that you did the best you can for the guys.
We're talking with Travis Hanna of the John Glenn Falcons, former now head coach. He just resigned recently, and you can catch this, by the way, also live on our video at Max 98.3 stream ! Because we're live there as well. And of course, if you can't catch the entirety here, you can also go back to our YouTube channel, and we'll also put it on Facebook later on today for you to enjoy. Travis, what has it meant to you being part of the Walkerton community? I mean, the John Glenn High School School Corporation. You seem that you've had a backing for the most part. I mean, talk a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I think there's obviously going to be people that are happy to see me resign, Tony. I mean, that's just part of it, right? That's part of the fun of being a high school coach. So, no, I mean, I made the comment. I got an opportunity to talk to Harold Welter yesterday, and I made the comment to him that, you know, my family and myself have made some lifelong friends in the Walkerton community, and hopefully, I don't know if Chris Winchell's going to see this, but hopefully I get to continue working there, you know, as a teacher, because I really do enjoy, you know, being a part of Walkerton Elementary and the John Glenn Corporation and being part of that fabric, and you know, they just, yeah, I made the comment. I've been very fortunate to work at Oregon Davis and to work at Glenn, and you know, those are two communities that just love their kids. I mean, they love everything that the kids do, and they support the, you know, whether it's the basketball program, football program, fine arts, no matter what it is. And not every coach can say that. There's a lot of horror stories out there, and you know, we were very fortunate, and I say we, you know, my family and I have been very fortunate to be a part of those two communities, and you know, like I said, we've made a lot of friendships that we'll continue to have and hopefully have for the rest of our lives.
Well, I know you've impacted a lot of lives, you know, and well, I mean, Dougie here can attest to it.
Oh yeah, I mean, my daughter had Travis when she was in elementary school, and I've told a lot of people that, you know, we were blessed to have a child that really, really loved school and excelled in school. But I'll tell you what, and I'll probably get a little emotional here, the teachers she had along the way set that foundation, and even went back to Tony's wife, Miss Jenny, in preschool. But like a guy like Travis, I mean, she to this day, and she's 23, loves Travis Hanna and asks about Travis Hanna. And I can't say enough what teachers, you know, how important they are to our kids. And, you know, I come from a family of teachers, and this guy to my left really had a great impact on my daughter.
Don't get choked. I told your daughter
Sorry.
every day, I'm like, I can't believe you came from the parents you came from, Abby. And
I'm just so blessed to have.
Abby was always a great one. I loved having her. And you know, that's one thing, Tony, that you know, people have a hard time believing I teach. You've been at my practices before, and a lot of people are like, how do you teach 12-year-olds all day, and then you come to basketball practice? And you know, I really have a lot of fun with those kids. You know, I try to keep it real with them. I'm obviously not the sit up straight, put your hands in your lap type of teacher. I mean, I want to be real with them, and we have a good time. So, you know, I told Harold yesterday, I went into teaching before I went into coaching. I knew I wanted to be an elementary teacher, and I went that route, and coaching just kind of happened. And so that's very important to me, the relationships that we have with those kids every day.
You know, and to be a head coach today is difficult. It really is. And it is involved for some reason over the many years, and I've been doing this 39, almost 40 years, to a point I don't know how you can coach, because you got to be a head coach, players, you know. And I just, you know, and you mentioned I had a chance to go to your practices, and I only... Yeah, the coaches get a lot of the fingers pointed and words said, and now that we got freaking social media, it's ridiculous. But yet you stuck with it. You know, you kept with it through it all, which tells me that there's a commitment level about Coach Hanna that the parents tend to forget. He's representing your child. You know, he cares about your child. You know, whether you like how it's being handled or not, he's still involved in the daily activities of a basketball program where you're supposed to be family. And, you know, and you're all in with family. At least you're supposed to be. You know, so talk about that. I mean, that has to. How do you keep it out of the home?
Well, I get both sides of it, believe me, and I wouldn't have been able to say that until my kid got involved in baseball, and he was blessed to have some really good baseball coaches throughout his career. But I'm dealing on a daily basis with the most important person in a family's life and their children. And I understand that wholeheartedly. The hard part becomes when, the communication breaks down, I think. And I always tell parents, first meeting we have at the beginning of the year, I'll talk to a parent about absolutely anything. I'll even talk about playing time. But it comes back to what you said. You got to understand that I see your kid 6 days a week for at least 2 hours, and you're getting the story when you come home, and the interpretation of that story might be a little different than what's actually happening, on a daily basis. And that's not, saying that a kid's a lie. It's just the way that it's interpreted. So we've worked really hard in trying to communicate with our kids, on a weekly basis or throughout the year, and letting them know, hey, this is your role. This is what we need you to do. And you're right, it is challenging. And I also tell our parents this, Tony, and you'll appreciate this, that I understand that sometimes I come across as a little arrogant. Maybe I tease with Kyle Amor all the time that Kyle could run for politician because he walks in the gym and he'll go shake hands with everybody in the gym. I walk in the gym, I'm going to go over in the corner and I'm going to stand and watch the game or do whatever I'm going to do because I get, and I'll give you a prime example. I had a gentleman talk to me after the Bi-County final, and hey, you're the greatest coach I've ever seen, and in the sectional final I got him 10 rows up yelling at me because I don't know what I'm doing. And that's just part of it. I get it. I don't hold anything against anybody. It's just, I understand that when you're dealing with a family's children, that's a big responsibility. And unfortunately, you're kind of that guy that begins the life process. Up until they get to be their freshman year, everything's kind of, the best player's going to play, and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. When you get to be in high school and on a varsity basketball team, now all of a sudden those roles change, and I'm the guy that has to deliver the news of, your kid's been a point guard forever, and now he's going to come off the bench and he might not be a point guard anymore, or whatever it may be. So it's important to me, and we tell our parents, hey, and so many coaches will tell you, you love those texts and those phone calls you get from parents who say, well, I'd appreciate if little Johnny didn't hear this because I haven't talked to him about this yet, so just keep it between. No, we're not doing that, because as soon as that comes out, I'm done talking to you, and I'm not going to have another conversation.
Well, there's a trust issue then, all of a sudden.
Well, and the first place a parent should go is to their kid and get the story from them, and then if they're not happy, then come and talk to me. But a lot of times that doesn't happen. So, I've been very blessed. I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't had a parent meeting at Glenn in 10 years.
Holy cow!
I haven't. I just pull that off. Well, I just think that
you walk on water too.
No, that's not it at all. I think that, like I said, we've worked really hard on the communication thing, and I think we've had a good group of kids, and I think we've had a good group of parents who understand, what we're trying to get at. And I'm not saying everybody agrees with everything we've done in 10 years. And I'm not saying that at all. When I first got to Glenn, I heard stories of people going to our union president and saying, hey, what do we got to do to get this guy out of here? But that happens when you follow a Gordon Moss, and I get it. So I'm not saying that we've been perfect in 10 years, but I think our communication with our parents, I think our parents understand, what our program's about, and I think they understand what we're trying to get accomplished, and that goes a long way.
Travis, we've heard so much about an official shortage. Are you concerned about a coaching shortage? Because you know better than anybody the commitment, the time that it takes. I mean, maybe we're there. But what do you think?
I'm not worried about a coaching shortage. I'm worried about a coaching quality shortage, to be honest with you. I've said this for years. The days of Jack Edison, Al Rhodes, Doug Ogle, doing it forever, Bill Patrick, I think those days are over. I think it's just too demanding anymore, to be honest with you. I mean, I'll give you an example, Doug. We started spring workouts. I should say they started spring workouts on Monday. For basketball. We get 2 days a week for 2 hours, and I'm driving home Monday, and John DuPont, our assistant, was running them for us, and I'm driving home at 3:30, and I'm thinking, I have no desire to be in the gym right now. Like, I feels like we just got done, and now the kids are right back at it, and I think the struggle that I've had the last few years, number one, I've wanted to follow Bryson around and playing baseball, so John DuPont's run everything for me in the spring, but even in the summer, if I feel like I want to be someplace, I know those kids feel like they want to be someplace. And we've got kids, you know, obviously at Glenn, we've got to have kids playing football, and they've got to be playing baseball, and they've got to be doing this and doing that. And it gets to a point where, you know, I've come to the understanding, you know, as a young coach, you want your kids at everything. You feel like you got to have your whole roster at every summer workout, and then you realize, okay, I've got this kid that's probably going to get a baseball scholarship, so he should be on the baseball field.
Yeah.
I got this kid that's going to have a football scholarship. He needs to be on the football field. And so, but yet at the same time, you're trying to maintain your program. So you're trying to get kids to come and play. I've said it many times. I've never begged a kid to play basketball, and I'm not going to start now. But that's hard because, you know, for instance, Monday, I know for a fact we had 3 JV kids that didn't show up for workouts that aren't in a spring sport. They just didn't feel like coming. And as a coach, you feel like, all right, well, we're going to open the gym up for you. You got to be there, and then when they don't show up, then it becomes frustrating.
You know, you've had a lot of great years, and of course the state title year with Oregon Davis. Is there a couple teams, we don't need individual names, but is there a couple teams that you felt that, you know, it was really, really special? Not just special because every one of your teams are special. I know you.
Yeah.
You know, every kid is a special kid, but there's those teams that the light bulb came on in the middle of a ball game when you were down or when you were up. You knew you had a group that knew what they were going to do. Is there any couple teams that kind of come to mind?
Well, I guess I should go back because that's kind of the question that Doug asked me earlier today. You know, and a couple people this week have asked me about the best win that we've had, and everybody always says, well, take the state title out of it. And I'm going to be honest with you, the state championship game is probably number 6, 7 on my list in terms of great games. You know, I go back to OD, my first year there, winning that first game against Michigan City Marquette.
Losing streak.
Well, yeah, I mean, you lost 56. Tony, we had a kid on that team that had never won a basketball game. And I'm not talking about in high school. I'm talking about you go all the way back to 5th grade, you go back to summer, you go back to he had never won a basketball game. And the only senior on that team. And that was a special night. Winning that game meant a lot to that community. And that's probably number 1 on my list. But in terms of teams, you know, I go back to when we started this streak of bi-county wins. You know, we won 5 of the last 6 years or 6, whatever it is. But the first one we won, you know, that group of kids was a group of kids that was Zach Mago's group. It would have been his senior year, and that group of kids just, you know, they had no business winning the bi-county that year. And I don't even know what our record ended up being, but that group of kids just, you know, they just had a special place. And it was a tough year for those guys, but for them to win that championship that year was very special. And then, you know, obviously I'm going to sound like dad here, but you know, being able to coach Bryce in the last 4 or 5 years was you know, top of the list. And pretty much every night out, it was just a special thing. And he was with such a great group of guys that just embraced him and embraced, you know, the concept and you know, Silas Kaser, Joe Dolinsky, guys like that. The last 5 years, I can say every year the last 5 years has been pretty special. They are.
Those were Coach Hanna kind of teams.
Well, and I tell everybody, you go back to the group that we had at OD, and you look at the group that we've had the last 4 or 5 years, and there's a lot of common denominators there. I mean, we had post play, we had guys that could shoot it, we had guys that can, and every coach is going to win when they've got that kind of talent. But you know, you guys as big Purdue fans, you understand. I mean, one of the reasons that I like watching Purdue so much is Matt Painter doesn't go out and recruit blue chippers. He goes out and gets guys that going to fit his program and play a certain way. And that's, you know, as a high school coach, you don't have that opportunity. Well, most high school coaches don't have that opportunity. But you know, and so when you get those guys, you know, it's fun when they play hard and play the game the right way.
Do you feel being in the NIC kind of pinned you down a little bit from having really, really good years? Where maybe seasons were average for you, but could have been a lot better if it wasn't in the freaking NIC?
I'll tell everybody, Tony, and we can argue and debate this all day long. I probably have 50 more wins on my resume. I probably have a few more sectional championships, and that's not being arrogant, but I'm going through St. Joe Marion every year in that sectional. Yep.
And we'll second that.
I mean, if you take them out of play and turn it into a one-game regional at somebody else's floor, I'll take my chances. But to have to go through what we've had to go through in 3A in that sectional, and you're right. I mean, The one year that we win that conference, I told everybody when we jumped into the NIC, I said I could have the greatest team in John Glenn history and still not win that conference. Little did I know that in 2022 we were going to prove it. Like I still believe, and obviously I don't go back to 1966 and every team that's played at John Glenn, but I would like to think that that team in 2022 is probably one of the best, if not the best, that walked those hallways, and we couldn't get out of the sectional. And we win that conference, but we had to share it with two other teams. So
Right.
I mean that's proof in the pudding right there. The days of I'm old school. The days of community basketball and those days. Hopefully, joining this new conference is going to help out Glenn an awful lot. But it's been a rough struggle, and you go back to. That's one of the reasons I want to come back this year, because I wanted to finish the NIC run. I just felt like it was important. I was there when it started, and I wanted to be the guy that kind of saw it out and let the next guy come in and experience the new conference and get their feet wet in the new conference.
Before we let him go, Tony, I'd just like to ask him, Travis, just your thoughts of the state of Indiana high school basketball. Not necessarily class basketball, but how they reclassify teams, the success rule. Again, you've witnessed a lot of years and seen its evolution. Where is Indiana high school basketball today? Is it in a good spot?
I don't know, Doug, to be honest with you. And there's so many different ways you could go with that question. And here's the deal. I don't have a state championship if we don't have class basketball. I totally get that. And I understand it. But I think sometimes we get too much into everybody deserves a trophy. I mean, and we just, we come off the heels of talking about, well, if we're not in the NIC, then this, and I totally get that. But I don't know. I mean, there's so much made of. Al Rhodes told me 5 years ago. He said we're heading in a direction of everything being club sports and high school sports ending, and I think there's truth to that. I really do. You mentioned officials. I'm not sure that I think the IHSA pushing this sportsmanship and don't yell at officials and all this. Well, you know what? Those officials are hearing that too. So I think that there's a lot more made of that than really needs to be made, and sometimes I think that's pushing it in the wrong direction of, if I'm an official and I hear everybody's yelling at me and doing this, well, when I get in a game, I become a little bit more sensitive of that stuff. Basketball's a great game. The state of Indiana is the best state in the country for high school basketball. There's no doubt about that. It still is. I'm still amazed that IU can't recruit a shooter from inside the state because there's plenty of them out there. But it's a great game. I just hope that you talk about reclassification and all this stuff. At some point, we just get back to, let's play basketball and let's have fun and let the communities get involved again. And I say it year after year. That's what I loved about the Bi-County so much, because it's back to the way basketball was in the 80s and 90s when I mean, and that's just me. I mean, you bring in another coach and they're going to tell you totally something different. I couldn't recruit at the high school level. I mean, I know there's guys in South Bend that do. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I want to coach the kids that come through our system and are part of our program. And
want to be part of the program.
Exactly. And so, I love the game. I love watching the game. But like you said, I think sometimes, as is the case in anything, I think sometimes we get too involved down in Indianapolis and things go a different direction.
Is shot clock coming?
Unfortunately, it is. I think you're going to. We might be the last state to adopt it, but I think eventually it's going to have to, because I think when other states start to adopt it, you're going to see those kids being used to it when they go to college, and then you're going to see Indiana kids that aren't, and I think that's going to probably play a role in that. So we put up new stuff at Glenn last year, and they wanted to put the shot clock in, and I said let's hold off a little while on that. So I know some schools have done it, and it's probably coming, but I don't think I'll be coaching when that happens, Doug. I can tell you that.
Well, I don't know. I just got a gut feeling you're going to. I want you to enjoy time with your family, but the game of basketball deserves Travis Hanna in it, And I think that's probably the biggest compliment, because when you talk to any coach, and I can call him up right now, they think the world of Travis Hanna and how he runs his program, and they try to emulate a little bit too, by the way. So, and that's a compliment. I hope you take that as a compliment, because you work. I've seen you work hard. You care for your kids. You love your kids. You don't care for them. You love, which is part of caring. And
the fact that you translate life into it is extremely important for these kids. And you got kids, believe it or not, whether you want to think it or not, that are very willing to run through a wall for you because you believed in them and you made them young men playing this game. I'm not here to blow smoke up your butt. I'm just telling you, this is what they tell me, and that again, the comfortability to tell a sports guy that they care about their coach says an awful lot about the coach, And so, Rita Price, she Hall of Fame broadcaster, and she was saying, we were talking about you and during the sectional, the same thing. You were highly respected, and I think you caught a lot of people off guard with this. But you know what? That's just a scenario where you're in a place where family comes first, and it always has come first. And this is a great opportunity for you to take advantage of it, which is exactly what you wanted to do. And no one will ever be able to fault you for that. And I will say, though, I will miss you to death, and above everything else, I appreciate our friendship that has grown over the many years and the trust, because, folks, I can't even tell you how much I've relied on this guy for our broadcast. And because a lot of the stuff you hear, it's got Travis Hanna's imprints on it, because I trust this guy, and this guy I know cares for his kids, and that's always been the bottom line. And that's why me and him, I think, been very, very successful when it comes to developing our friendship, and it's always been a pleasure to come to the practices. And you're right, you've had great kids year in and year out. And if I was a John Glenn parent, I would definitely feel better knowing that Travis Hanna was coaching my kid. And again, I know no coach will ever do it, but you know what? When little Johnny get that little playing time, little visit with the parents, I think would always open up a few eyes here and there to see the other side. But you know what? You got to establish that trust with the kid, and that's the most important part. So we appreciate you coming in on an afternoon, Friday afternoon, no less. But we wanted to give you this because I want people to know who Travis Hanna truly is, and I hope people will take a lot out of it, and hopefully a few more will miss you.
You make me cry on a Friday afternoon, Tony. Are you kidding me?
No.
No, you know what? And here's the deal. I think a lot of people saw this coming. I think a lot of people thought I was going to be done after last year when Bryson was done. And as I said many times, I couldn't leave this group of seniors that we had. And I don't know what's in the future. I've had people come up and congratulate me, and I don't know how to respond to that, because maybe it's a retirement, maybe it's a resignation. I don't know what it is, because as I've said many times, I turned 50 this year. I've been the head coach for 25 years. I've never not done this.
Holy crap! I'm older than you.
I know. So I don't know. Maybe in a month I'm chomping at the bit. Maybe my wife's ready to kick me out of the house, and I got to get back into. I don't know.
You got to do farm work,
and I don't want to lie to people and say, hey, I'm retiring, and then a year from now or 2 years from now I jump back into it. I feel like I still have the energy to do it. I just don't know that I have the energy right now to do it, to be honest with you. Sometimes you got to step away, and like I've said many times, I love it at Glenn. I love teaching there. I've loved coaching there. But in 17 years, I think everybody understands this. You get to a point where you feel like maybe somebody can not. This is going to sound arrogant, not do it better, but a different voice maybe comes through to the kids a little bit more. And I really felt like, I made the comment in the paper. We had one junior, 6 sophomores, and 18 freshmen this year, and our junior high is really good. And if ever there's a time roster-wise for that move to be made, it's the right time. And I think our kids understand that. And so I'm going to miss talking to you on a Saturday morning. I'm going to miss seeing you and Doug at the games. I keep telling DuPont, and I know DuPont will be on the bench next year in one capacity or another. I'm going to come and make fun of him next year, but it gives me a chance to get out, and I'd like to go to some practices and watch. I've never been to another high school practice other than my own, to be honest with you, in 25 years. So I'm looking forward to getting some other practices and seeing how other guys do it, and maybe I can learn some things, and maybe that recharges the batteries a little bit, and we'll see what happens in the future. But I appreciate everything you guys have done, not only for me, but for our program, for my family, and as you said, the friendships go a lot further than basketball, and we'll continue that. So thanks for having me in on a Friday afternoon, and it's a pleasure.
All right, buddy. we're going to do dinner down the road here.
Absolutely.
Shortly, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gents, there he is. That's Travis Hanna here on Max 98.3 and Sports Talk on the Max. When we come back, we talk Final Four, and it's next. Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Max, everybody. Tony Ross, great to be with you. Thanks again to Travis Hanna for giving us some time out of his busy schedule, even though now he gets a chance to relax a little more and enjoy the family. That'll be his final assignment with us, and so I think he's pretty happy about that too. Not that I'm.
That was great to have Travis
bugging
here.
him all the time. No, I just think the world of that guy, and he has touched a lot of lives, and I hope he walks out of here knowing that, because that's the truth.
And he's the kind of guy that makes our jobs great.
Oh.
Why we do what we do. I mean, we say it sometimes on the air, but you know, I don't want our listeners to take it for granted and think it's just lip speak. But Tony and I are very, very blessed to be able to work with the Travis Hannas of the world, and then on top of that, get to cover their teams and game. It's so much more than just
It
basketball
really is
for us.
And if we're not portraying that, then we need to do what Trav did and maybe move on. But I don't, and that's not in our make, and we're going to continue going on. All right, Final Four. I'm nervous.
Can you
not
believe it?
gonna lie.
How about this? Can you believe it, Tony?
No, I can't believe it.
Purdue is
to be
in the
honest with you.
Final Four.
Yeah,
I've been saying it all week, as you know.
It's here, and they got North Carolina State, and then Alabama, Connecticut. Which one do you want to attack first? I want to spend a majority on Purdue. So
Sure.
let's go that route. Let's go Purdue first. Let's go
Because they
Purdue
start
first.
tomorrow. Just for, I'm sure our listeners are aware.
Yeah.
A little after 6,
Yeah, 6:09 is
On
going to be
TBS.
TBS.
which is
I don't know why the hell it's not on a network.
CBS.
Yeah, why isn't CBS just having it on the network?
And I believe
is there some rodeo that they think is going to get more viewership than this?
TBS, True TV, and TNT are all broadcasting the Final Four. But again, like Tony said, don't get us go. We have no answer to why not CBS.
It just doesn't make any sense. Surely NCSI can take a weekend off. You would think. But anyways, Boilers, North Carolina State, and I'm going to tell you. I know Zach caught a lot of grief for his word that he used on the post-game show, but I got to admit, if I'm NC State in this case, and I heard him talk about heart, I'm a little worried. I mean, and I say this because you don't hear too many players be that serious about making a comment about a team's heart unless they're on a mission.
Yep.
That was a mission statement.
And he was fired up this week when they got to Arizona. He admitted, he said some things that he shouldn't have. But again, heat of the moment. He was fired up. And don't think for a second that team, that program, and the university hasn't taken heat all year long especially after the FDU loss. And I know
Yeah.
that comes with the territory. Well, people say, well, don't lose to a 16 seed. Okay. But
Easier said than done, by the way.
right. But for all this team's endured, because our listeners know it's endured a lot, and it hasn't just been last year's 2023. It's been, losing to 3 double-digit seeds in the tournaments, in past tournaments under Painter. And, oh, by the way, NC State's a double-digit seed because they've made an unbelievable run. I think they've won 9 games in a row, had to win 5 in a row in 5 days to win the ACC tournament. So there's that could possibly happen again. But again, it's interesting. We were talking on the way home from Detroit, Tony, that sure, you'll always remember the FDU loss, but all of a sudden, what transpired Sunday sort of just made that go away, right? And, I've heard, some people, Purdue people too, talk about, well, they hope the team, that isn't the end all, just making the
They're
Final
just
Four.
happy with that win
Right.
and everything else.
And how
now
do
is
they
icing.
come out tomorrow against NC State? But to go back to your point, you listen and watch when Zach Edey, and he said going into Detroit last weekend, I didn't come back just to make the Sweet 16. We're hearing the same things. I didn't come back just to make the Final Four, and we'll see. I mean, it's going to be different for all 4 teams because nobody's played in a football stadium,
Right.
and it's not a
Background is
1/3
different.
or 2/3
Yeah.
football stadium. It's all the
full.
stadium. I mean, they have put that court in the middle of State Farm Stadium where the Arizona Cardinals play. So the shooting could be very, very interesting. And I will say I don't know if knock on whatever. I don't know if Purdue can shoot any more poorly than it did against Tennessee from the outside, and they still found a way to win. Well, that was because Zach Edey went for 40. But I think that, no doubt, works
But you got to
in
get him
Purdue's
involved.
advantage.
See,
Yeah.
And it's the other part about that. I know everybody say, oh, he got 40 because he's 6 or 7'4". Listen, he's got to get the ball. You got to do something to get him the ball. And the assist numbers are incredible when you look at what Braden Smith, and you were just telling me before we got on the air.
He's 14 assists away from setting the
Yeah.
all-time Big Ten record for a single season.
I thought everybody did a great job getting Edey the ball when they needed to.
And
And stop and think about it. All you basketball geniuses out there that were making fun of the situation. If you're not hitting from outside, what should you be doing?
Yeah.
Driving inside.
And
Getting it inside to
that
your
was the
guy.
difference in Purdue, at least in
But see, that's
that
not rocket
Tennessee game,
science.
which you didn't see in the FDU game, is they had some open looks, they missed some open looks, but they didn't completely fall in love with the three-point shot.
Right.
Like you just said, Tony, players were driving the basketball and they were getting it into Edey. And I heard a great explanation from Matt Painter this week. He said a lot of people, come up to him and ask him, why does Fletcher Loyer or Braden Smith have a lot of open driving lanes and layups? Well, it's simple because people are cheating on Zach Edey. And by
You
the
have to.
time they realize, oh, Braden Smith's going to the hole, it's too late. So when you watch Purdue play, again, that's just one of many ways Zach Edey impacts the game.
And it's not hard to get it. It's not hard to understand defensively what you have to do. You have to play a man and a half on Zeddy,
Right.
or Zach Edey. And if you don't do that, then I will tell you that dude will be Pac-Man on every pass inside, and he will score.
Yeah.
How many times did you hear the analysts on the television talk about the fact anytime he gets the ball a foot and a half away from the basket, it's automatic? That's all Purdue's got to do. And so it's not that difficult to defend against the Purdue. It's the execution part of that defense that becomes tough.
And on top of that, he is one of the ways he's improved his game this year from last is he's quicker off his feet. So
Much quicker.
He can miss a shot and be able to rebound the basketball again to put it back in. if he misses it. And
One thing I love that Zach has made an adjustment on, and you can go back to the FDU game too. When they got it into Zach, he was too far out of his range, and he wasn't quite sure where his range needed to be to get in. Nor did FDU make it to where he could get into his range. Now Zach, and because of his effort down the court, has already got himself almost into the position he needs to be. So before, where he was taking shots that he was missing, he's handling the ball and either making sure he's got the one-on-one or he can dish it. Now, if he's a foot and a half away, he understands that's him. That's him. He has to score. That is now his job. So it's like he kind of learned a little bit more about where he needed to be even more successful, or at least give him an opportunity to be successful. So that's a 7'4" guy who, by the way, is athletic. Whether you like it or not, this dude is athletic. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's able to put up numbers that he does.
And keep in mind, he played all but 33 seconds against Tennessee.
Yeah.
Tennessee's great Dalton Connect, who's an unbelievable player, had stints where he sat out for a minute here, a couple minutes there. Edey had a 33-second respite. Yeah. And that's just, for any player to play a game of that caliber, to play that amount of time is remarkable, let alone a man that size, 7 feet, 7'4", 300 pounds. Again, you and I have talked about it because we love hockey. There's no doubt in my mind it's his hockey background, for his cardio, et cetera. You look at his footwork, it's another thing he's improved significantly. Now the big storyline going into this matchup with the Wolfpack, in addition to how hot they are, is the matchup he'll have with DJ Burns, who's 6'9", 280. Now, that's great size, really, but going against a Zach Edey, he's given up 7 inches and 20 pounds. Now, can Burns push him enough off the block where it affects Edey? Oh, and do that without fouling. Going to be a huge storyline. I don't think Burns, I think it's safe to say, has not played. No one's played against somebody like Zach Edey. And Edey, at the same time, he has played against bigs. Don't forget Ballo from Arizona. Oh, he's 7'2", in the 260 range. And Edey didn't eat him alive, but he got him in foul trouble. And, of course, that was a game Purdue won in Indianapolis. So that will be a huge matchup, no doubt. Again, if Edey, I don't want to say he has to go for 40, but if he has another 20, upper 20s and 15 or so rebounds, you got to love Purdue's chances. Because, again, even though they're in a dome, a football stadium, I just personally, I think they'll shoot a little bit better than they did on Sunday. And, Matt Painter had, again, another great quote in the press conferences leading up to tomorrow's game about this is a completely different NC State team than the one, of course, that was around 500. And, he looks at it like they're 9-0. And that has been his message to his team. This is an undefeated team we're facing. Sure. And, of course, everybody's good if you get to the Final Four. You've won 4 straight. If not more. And, of course, if Purdue's fortunate enough to get to their first national championship game since 1969, more than likely, unless we see quite an upset, UConn will be waiting for them, and that would be really the matchup everybody's wanting to see.
I actually think Alabama could keep up with them at least for the first half.
Oh, I think they can keep up. Remember, that's an Alabama team that Purdue played, and they were unconscious from 3. I think they hit in the teens, and yet Purdue somehow found a way to beat them in Toronto. So don't think for a second that Alabama's not talented enough to give UConn a scare.
To me, it's how close Alabama can keep with Connecticut.
Yeah. Again, I'm just concerned because Alabama's going to have to hit threes. And again, maybe I'm making too much of the shooting background, but usually teams don't shoot lights out from distance in a football
Well,
stadium.
Connecticut's so good at getting to
Right.
the ball, especially on the catch.
And they have Klingman, the big beast,
Yeah,
inside
yeah.
7-2. Again, why I say there's many, UConn and Purdue have been top 5 all season long, but it's the matchup. I think a lot of people that don't have ties to either one of those universities have been salivating to see come Monday night. But also they want to see Edey against Klingman. And because that, you talk about two Twin Towers going at it, that would be spectacular. And UConn's certainly not just Klingman. And, people, and rightfully so, because Edey's going to win his second straight National Player of the Year award. But, and Painter's the first one to point out, our offense goes through Zach Edey. But this just isn't a one-man show.
Right.
I saw Purdue.
Not this year.
I saw Purdue in one-man show when Glenn Robinson was there the year before they made the Elite Eight. Glenn's first year that he played, 92, 93. That was pretty much a one-man show. But, Braden Smith can go off. Fletcher Lawyer has been on a great run for the last, 4 or 5 weeks. And
You seen Lance Jones go
yeah,
off
Lance Jones might have hit the biggest
Oh, he did,
three-point
without question.
shot
against
maybe
Tennessee.
in Purdue
Yeah.
history, Tony.
Yeah,
So
that was enormous.
that's, this Purdue team is, our listeners are well aware, they have a lot of weapons, and it'll be interesting to see, can they do it and punch their ticket tomorrow to Monday night's championship game.
Back to wrap it up here on Sports Talk on the Max after this. We've got baseball later this afternoon. We're going to make the trek over to LaVille. John Glenn will take on the LaVille Lancers. Lancers got one win under their belt already, and that was an impressive win over Argus. Matter of fact, got the shutout through a no-hitter, a two-pitcher no-hitter, as a matter of fact. And we'll talk more about that during the broadcast later tonight. John Glenn will be playing their season opener. They have had 3 games whitewashed because of Mother Nature. And so they're going to play their first game, and it's going to be on the road at LaVille. And we've got it for you right here on Max 98.3. And we'll be on the air, I think, probably around 4:15, 4:30, somewhere along that, maybe a little bit later, depending on bus schedules and stuff like that. So we look forward to bringing you that broadcast here on Max 98.3 once again tonight. Rusty's going to have Pilgrim basketball this Saturday. Baseball, I'm sorry, God. Baseball Saturday afternoon. It'll be a double hitter down there. You can catch that on our max983.net webpage. Go to the sports tab and click down to Rusty's games, and voila, you got it. And so that'll be tomorrow here on max98.3.net for the Pilgrims. All right, Doogie, boiler up, man.
Boiler up.
Folks,
Hail Purdue.
That's right. And that'll wrap it up for today's show. We'll talk to you in a couple hours.